Welcome into the Mean Streets podcast. William Galloway here with you 1 month after our latest episode. Britton Johnson joins me on the other side of the screen. BJ, good to see you. Roll Tide. And I don't know if we really needed to do this because we've been on a 6 game win streak.
Yeah, I mean this might do us harm. But I think we had a couple of losses that started afterwards, so it's probably a good thing we get back and talk about, especially the Arkansas game. I mean, you can't not talk about a 6 game win streak when it's there.
So Bama's 20-7 as it stands right now. We're recording this on Tuesday, February 24th. Three good games in the SEC tonight. We've got Bama versus Mississippi State tomorrow night. And last time Bama faced off against State, we'll talk about that game shortly. But Josh Hubbard had 23 points, so obviously the league's top scorer or one of the top scorers statistically, if he's not number one of the top five is going to try and get his fill against the Crimson Tide tomorrow night. But let's talk about this tear we've been on since we last spoke. Bama's 7-2, 5 games with Bediako, 3-2 with him, 4-0 since. And so, Britton, what do you make of the Bediako experiment? And then what have you seen from the Crimson Tide and its impressive 4-0 skid since his departure, absence, whatever we want to call it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to dive too far in on the legal side again and all that. I mean, on a personal level, feel for Charles. Wish he was able to play, and I'm kind of bummed for him, but. Uh, I don't know. I think a lot's being made of this. I've heard a lot of people say this team's just better without Charles, and I'm not even saying that there might not be hints of truth to that, especially on the offensive side. Um, but I think more than anything, is this team has gotten healthy and they've played a good stretch of opponents, um, and are starting to scale. Like the team is starting to scale in the right direction as they're supposed to, but. Um, we were talking about this just before we recorded. Like so much of these quote unquote runs or slides that teams go on are just like how the schedule is set up. And not to say that this team's not getting better. I think the fact that this team is as healthy as it's been in a long time, which still means that like half the players will be questionable on any given day, but just where guys are on the court playing these games. This is as healthy as we're going to be the rest of the season, and it's kind of all hit in that stretch. But I mean, look at the teams we're playing, with the exception of the Arkansas game, which we're going to dive into. Obviously, that was an unbelievable game. The rest of those six were just against opponents that are not necessarily like the top end of the SEC in terms of talent level and otherwise. And so, uh, and the Arkansas game was at home, and so I think you look at those, if you're going pre-conference play and you start to circle, hey, here are the games we got to be really worried about. This 6 game stretch, the Arkansas game would have been, there would have been a star by it, and before conference play, that probably would have been about it. And obviously, A&M turned out to be a really good opponent, and some of these other teams have turned into good teams. But so this is the 6 game stretch you go on a run in, and then I think you can kind of scale it towards the end as well. Every game that's left is winnable. Saturday's gonna be tough at Tennessee, but the first half, I think, and conversely, I think people really overreacted to being 4-4 in conference play. And you looked at who we played. Texas game was definitely the low point. That was a really bad loss, but the rest of them were really not bad losses. I wish we didn't lose by 30 to Florida, but there are not 5 teams playing better basketball than the Florida Gators right now
Not at all.
in the country on the road. That was a tall task to begin with. And so, um, you know, all that is to say, yes, I think Charles probably helped us defensively, and I'm not gonna say he hurt us offensively so much as this team has built in a great flow and chemistry together on the offensive side without him, and they clearly are flowing really well right now. And so, I'm hoping it continues. I'm hoping, and the other thing about it is like these runs you go on, even though it might be schedule runs, they really can build real confidence. And so the team that goes and plays at Tennessee might be a very, very different basketball team than the team that played Tennessee at home a month ago or whenever that was. And so that's something to look for sure.
We talk about the Arkansas game, and there was a reporter, I can't remember who, but had made a note that Arkansas had not won a big conference game on the road. They're playing really good basketball. They're to be feared in Bud Walton. They host Texas A&M tomorrow night as we record this on Tuesday. And they needed a big road win, and they just about got it. Acuff put up, I think it was the most since Pete Maravich. I don't know if anybody scored 50. I think one of the best performances I've seen with my own eyes in Coleman Coliseum was John Morant scoring 39 or 40. 7, 8 years ago, whenever that was, his freshman year at Murray State. I think his only year. But Britain, 2 extra periods of basketball, 10 extra minutes, 117, 115, Acuff and Philon going at it, Sherelle pouring in 26. Aside from the stats and the numbers, just the sheer excitement to see that game has to be the game of the year, not just in the SEC, but college basketball.
I mean, I can speak for us both in saying I had a lot of fun watching that basketball game. And I got to a point where it was in double OT, and this is a bad Alabama fan moment. I just kind of I wanted the game to keep going. I was like, yes, I want to win, but it'd be kind of great if they hit some crazy shot and it went to triple overtime and just kept going. And Darius Acuff put on one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen from a freshman. Um, I think like 49, most people recognize how crazy that is, but like scoring 30 at the college level is the equivalent to scoring like 45 in the NBA. Scoring 40 at the college level is the equivalent of scoring like 55 or 60 in the NBA. Scoring 49, scoring 50, almost 50
You
points is that's like a 65, 70 point game.
You wanted him to eclipse 50, right? I mean, as an Alabama fan, you're like, shut this guy down. But as a pure basketball appreciating human being, you watch the guy and you're like, get a bucket. Like just do something. Don't stop the entertainment.
No doubt. And like I think Philon obviously kind of matched him to some level. I mean, having 35 of his own, and you go down the box score, just like I went through it and just was blown away by just even the guys like Amari Allen had like a double double with like over 15 points and like 11 plus rebounds. And so you kind of went down and you're like, everybody stepped up. And then you'd have big plays from Houston Millette throughout the game and just those big threes late. He didn't have the craziest statistical game, but that's what's so fun about you get 50 minutes of awesome basketball. It's built up of 100 moments, and just so many different opportunities for guys to make little plays that change the game. I mean, Houston on that kind of, I guess maybe not game winning, but the three that put us ahead and kind of kept us ahead, I guess at the end, it was just such a funny play because Arkansas's down to 3 rotation guys. They had these 2 guys that don't play in rotation a lot, and this 7-foot white kid is out there that you can tell. I knew nothing about. He could be a 4+ star recruit. He could be an awesome recruit and could be a great basketball player one day. But I mean, as anyone would who did not play the first 47 minutes of the game and then is thrust into this unbelievable college basketball game, was kind of out of his depth in that moment and gets switched on to Philon. And you can literally see it. He starts running from the basketball because he doesn't want to have to guard LeBaron in that moment. And it makes Brazil switch over to Philon out of the corner, and Houston's just wide open. So many fun moments in that game. What a confidence building game for this team. The crowd was awesome. And you really heard some great crowd pops late in that game. The 6 p.m. midweek tip offs are just really tough for guys to get in early. But by halftime, I mean, it was just the whole second half was just incredible. And so, unbelievable basketball game. I enjoyed it so much. Arkansas is such a fun team, as are we, obviously. I mean, if you watch Alabama, you know how fun offensively this team is. But
It is nice to
I mean,
watch an Arkansas team not coached by the old Eric Must. I was about to call him Muschamp. Oh gosh,
Will
Eric
Musselman.
Musselman. Yeah, it's just nice to not have him in the league anymore. Britton, I'm going to read you these stats from Steven Gonzalez, and Alabama basketball sports information director. So this is from the team website, and this is all kind of lost in the drama of the game and the 49 versus Philon's 35 and all that. Bama shot 10 of 29 from three-point range, making it the ninth time in the last 10 games that the Crimson Tide has scored 10 three-pointers. That's remarkable. But check this out too. The 14-point comeback, which we all kind of forget. Obviously, the game was exciting because of a comeback like that. 14-point comeback. The largest come from behind victory this year ties the Mississippi State comeback on January 13th. And then one more 40 made field goals are the most that they made all season. Obviously, you play 10 extra minutes of basketball, you're going to score a lot of those. And then 58 paint points. It's pretty good too.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. I think if you had asked an Alabama fan, okay, we just scored 117 points, how many of those do you think are threes? I think most people would say 17 plus made 3-pointers. Like we must have just blown the roof off of it and scored 60-ish points off of threes. But that's just not how the game flowed at all. I mean, Arkansas really wanted to limit our 3-point shot and truthfully did a really good job at it. And, I think it just resulted in us getting a lot of paint shots. That's why Aiden Sherrill ended up with like 20. See, that's the thing. It's like everyone's talking about the individual, like, oh, Acuff had 49 and LeBaron had 35. Let's read some of these stats. I mean, Aiden Sherrill, 26 points, 13 rebounds. Not even like that's like a footnote on this game. No one's talking about that. Amari Allen, 19 and 11. LeBaron had 35. Aiden
Holloway
Holloway,
15.
15 points. And then you go to the Arkansas side, and you're like, Malik Thomas, 24 points. Billy Richmond, 20 points. I mean, that is unbelievable for just that kind of individual performances across the board from guys. I mean, it's one of those games you're going to pop on in 3 years and just have a lot of fun watching, especially, I think Acuff and Philon and a couple of those other guys have a chance to be pretty big time pros. And so it could be really fun to look back on that duel. But no, it was super fun game to watch. There's a lot of criticism being thrown at the defense, but I saw a lot late of just like individually great offensive players. I would say maybe, yeah, at the end of regulation, hey, pick up Darius Acuff a little higher. Pick him up at the proverbial volleyball line and not at, the extended 3-point line and let him shoot a three to tie the game. There are little things for sure. But I thought we did a really good job rebounding. I thought we did a really good job attacking the rim. And, I heard a lot of Arkansas fans crying about the refs. I
Well,
don't want to get in
naturally,
on
that's what they
this.
do.
Yeah. Well, but any game you could have, hey, this team shot more free throws, so that means this or that means that. And obviously, yeah, they had four of their guys foul out. But it was kind of this like styles make fights, and they wanted that style. They invited the style in which they wanted Alabama to attack the rim. And we got some calls out of it. And I'm not saying like got some calls in like a charity way, but just in that you attack the rim, you're more likely to go to the free throw line. And so, and that's stung us in the past. We have games where we settle for 3-pointers. We look at the end and we shoot 15 less free throws. But this was a game that we kind of had to attack. And so I think that really helped us get to the free throw line. And obviously there's so many things in a game that long. There's so many things that get lost. I mean, they had a goaltend call that on the court they upheld as no goaltend, or no, they upheld as a goaltend, and then Birmingham calls into the refs and overturn. It was just like weird. I'm not even saying that in a complaining way, but just like weird little things throughout this
Well, hey,
game.
we won't get fined $25,000 like Mark Pope will, so you can say whatever you want.
Yeah. I'm not getting into all that. What an interesting
I'm
choice
kind of
of.
rage baiting you here.
It was just really interesting of him to like. I thought it was hilarious as a just complete neutral third party, but you might not have said it in front of the mic, but brother, you said it to the
Oh, the
crowd.
mic was still hot, my friend. It
Yeah.
was still hot. Hey,
Um,
117 points are the second most scored in school history, and the most since the Tide scored a jaw-dropping 123-55, if my math is correct, years ago against South Florida on December 9th, 1971. So we'll put that game to rest, and let's talk about the league. Bama, one of three teams tied for second. Florida head and shoulders above the rest, kind of like you were saying. I believe it is now a five-way tie. Obviously, things will shake up after that, after tonight, with fifth place. No, sixth place. A&M's got a lone hold of fifth place, and then I think it's a three or four way tie for fifth place. So everybody's jumping around, and obviously everybody's playing everybody. We're starting to play people twice now. But how do you kind of see it shaking out in terms of, do you think somebody in Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee might slip out of that double bye spot and fall below the four line? Do you see Texas A&M sneaking in, or even Vanderbilt making a push back in conference play towards the end of the season to try and get that double bye?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be tricky because I haven't truthfully looked at some of these other teams' remaining games. I know for Alabama, Saturday's massive because I think if you win, not that I look past Mississippi State or anything like that, but if you win Wednesday and go win at Tennessee on Saturday, I think you're set up really well to finish in that number 2 seed, which would just be huge. Frankly, I'm not saying this as like a I'm scared thing. I would just rather avoid Florida for as long as possible with the way they're playing. And so getting in that 2 or 3 slot would just be really, really nice, aside from getting the double bye. Um, I think for some of these teams, like Texas A&M has a decent close late. They don't really have Arkansas on the road, and Bud Walton's gonna be a really tough one. And then their last three are all gettable. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, so I think that that's gonna be good for them. But I don't necessarily see them slipping up. What are they at? 5 losses,
Yeah, they're 9-5.
9-5. I think they should be aiming to finish 12-6. And if you do that, what a massive accomplishment that is in year one for Bucky. And um, it'd be great for Alabama, conversely, to finish in that 13-5, 14-4 range. And 14-4, it sounds really obvious to say it after starting 4-4, but like I think even after a couple of games with all the injuries we faced before you knew the games we dropped, 14-4 is a pretty freaking solid record to finish on.
And winning your last 10.
Yeah. And I expect Florida to be 16-2, 15-3. Like I don't think that would be good enough to necessarily finish in a tied spot, but
I haven't
uh,
looked at Florida. I mean, do they play anybody who could, obviously they could have a bad night,
I
but do
know
they
they have
have somebody
Kentucky
that could
left,
jump them?
and they have maybe Arkansas. I have to look.
Yeah, they host
Uh,
Arkansas. They're at Texas tomorrow. Then they're hosting Arkansas, and they host State, and then they're at Kentucky. Could be a last ditch effort from Kentucky to go all out in Rupp and disrupt
yeah,
the
and
Gators'
and
party.
again, we were talking about the schedule dynamics earlier. Another example of it is, yeah, you had A&M who we were just talking about, who had a quote unquote, 4 or 5 game slide where they went 1-4. Um, where if you looked at it, you're like, yeah, those are the five toughest. That's the toughest 5 game stretch, including three of like the top four teams in the league, all in this stretch of games. That's going to be really tough for them to finish. And then Kentucky's another one where it's complete opposite side, where they had a really fortuitous beginning of their schedule where, they start off 0-2, and then they have a 6 or 7 game stretch where very winnable, and they take advantage of it because that's what good tournament level teams do. And then they've kind of hit a rough patch where it's I think everyone seeing Kentucky fans has been really funny because it's fire Mark Pope, then it's Mark Pope's back, and now it's fire Mark Pope, and I just don't think that their team has changed.
They
And
lost by
maybe
one
that's
at Auburn. Now you probably are better than Auburn, but I mean, you didn't lose by 20.
no, and I don't think I don't think Auburn's a horrible team. I think they're a team that is worthy of being a bubble team, and I mean that both in a good and bad way. They're good enough to be a tournament level team. They're bad enough to be, in consideration to miss. Um, but it's not like Auburn's a bad team, and you go play on the road there. That's a tough game to play. It's an absolute must win for probably for both those teams, but for sure for Auburn. I mean, if Auburn loses that game, they're having an uphill battle to make it to the tournament. Um, and so I don't know. I've kind of just really been surprised at how some people just do not understand that, like, how the way schedule dynamics work, the way the season flow works, and how you can lose games against good to maybe not the best teams, but like good teams, especially on the road. Bucky said this after their game against Ole Miss, and it's just any given night, one of these teams can pop off and be really good. Mississippi State, for example, like Josh Hubbard had 35 points in the first half of that game. Now, some of that can revert back to Auburn maybe not defending him that great, but he hit 9 threes. He was 9 for 12 from three. That is
It's
unconscionable.
nuclear.
And so that it's really is every any given night. I mean, we were down how many points to Mississippi State in
14.
that first matchup? Yeah, we were down 14 to them, and then we scratched and clawed our way back. And so
That
I
was
was to
a
say,
hard
like,
watch in that first half. But Britton, I want to ask you this as we talk about some of these teams. Oklahoma is another one of those. I don't know that Porter Moser is going to be retained. I don't know that he deserves to, but also on that note that you're saying, how many 1, 2, 3, 4 point games have the Sooners had this year that haven't gone their way? Right. And in
yeah,
this landscape, you can't just give up and roll over. Like they're still fighting. Bucky said that in his press conference before their game at in Norman this past weekend. But Oklahoma could very easily be a 6-8, 7-7, as opposed to 3-11. So it. I mean, I'm glad I'm not an athletic director, nor am I qualified to be one. But when you look at that, you can't necessarily justify firing your coach when he's gone 3-11 and he's been in just about every game. Now, part of that is you got to find a ways to win. But my question to you is when you look at the 500 and below teams, Georgia, Auburn, this is in conference play, Georgia, Auburn State, the Sooners, South Carolina, Ole Miss, LSU. I think a lot of those, at least three of those, I think your coach is going to be gone. I think South Carolina, LSU, and Oklahoma. But again, how do you weigh the Sooners being in all of those games? That's tough.
yeah. I mean, Oklahoma's not a bad team, and that's it's a weird thing to say, you know. In an ironic way, we've been saying this a lot about the Auburn football program for the last few years, right? Like you get to the end, you're like, this team went 5-7, and they had Alabama, and they had this team, and they had that team on the ropes. And if you look at their talent composite, they're a top 20 most talented team. And it's just the nature of being in a good league is someone has to come out in the bottom, you know. And it doesn't mean Oklahoma is a bad team, like you said. So many one possession games. I think Missouri had to hit two buzzer beaters against them to beat them. I mean, that it's crazy. And so they're they're close to being a 500-ish team in the SEC. I mean, they almost beat Alabama. They had a shot that would have sunk us. And so like all these teams, like the margins are extremely, extremely thin. And that's kind of where if you have really strong culture, you kind of. I mean, I think that's what Texas A&M's done very, very well this year. You watch their first couple of SEC games, 1, 2, 3 point games, they somehow win, and they've just kind of built this resilience about them where they get in these games late. And they don't win all of them. They lost to Missouri in a similar fashion recently, but they're comfortable there and they're willing to fight there. And so, um,
Had they
I
not
think,
lost to Missouri, though, I don't know if they could have beaten Ole Miss
yeah,
the following
yeah.
week.
So it's just like you continue to grow and improve, and but yeah, the margins are really thin. Like Oklahoma might not be an NIT team now, where if a couple of those games go differently, they're on the bubble to make the NCAA tournament. So it's crazy. I don't think Porter Moses is a bad coach.
No,
So it'll be interesting to see what programs like that do. I think every once in a while you'll get a more clear cut answer, like LSU with Matt McMahon. Not that I'm praying on his downfall or anything, but you just
no,
look, he's
but
been
you
there
can't.
four
That's
years.
not the standard at LSU.
Yeah. It's not even that LSU's, a golden child SEC program, but Will Wade had them in a really good spot. However, in means that would now be allowed. And, you
I
know,
think they should get him. They should.
it'd be really funny. But I do think that's another aspect of it where it's really interesting, where I'd love to see how South Carolina's NIL compares to the average SEC basketball program and how much you as an athletic director have to like realistically weigh that. Hey, if my team is getting outspent 2x by the majority of these programs, how can I expect them to go 500 or better? Like at the end of the day, these coaches aren't miracle workers. Now, does that mean that all of them are great fits for their program? No, but that's just an added element in the modern age of
Yeah, but
college
they're not
sports
getting
you have to weigh.
embarrassed in a lot of these games either, right? They're talented, and that's what you're saying. As we kind of wrap things up here, we talked about the bottom half of the league, looked at the top, kind of those top four seeds who are going to get double buys. Bama has got a great one coming up against Mississippi State. Revenge opportunity, really. Had a great one against Arkansas. last week. Got a good one in LSU, probably closer, definitely closer than we all would have liked. Got to give a shout out to Pat Bradley. I met Pat Bradley on the plane train in Dallas, coming back from College Station a couple weeks ago. So I told him I did a podcast with you, and got to give him some love. There's probably no way he hears this or gets to this point in the podcast if somehow he does listen, but shout out to Pat Bradley. And Britton, we'll kind of leave it with you to kind of ask any questions, bring up any topics as we got a couple minutes left here.
I think one thing that has stood out to me about this year of college basketball, first of all, the sport is in a really healthy position despite maybe some BS kind of going around the outside of it with which players are allowed to play and that kind of stuff. But one thing that stood out this year, last year it was all COVID year guys that are these 25-year-olds leading teams to you think about the Auburn team, think about some of these teams where it's just super, super veteran led. This year it's the year of the freshmen. And these freshmen are just unbelievable. I mean, I'd almost like you can't lump in LeBaron in that group, but you almost want to. Amari Allen's become my favorite player on this team. He just kind of does everything. But around the country, we just talked about Darius Acuff. The leading scorer in America is Devonta, who should be wearing crimson right now, but is not. I mean,
We
just
don't have enough
across the
Brinks
board,
trucks.
the difference maker in March might be these freshmen, and that's kind of a weird place to be. It's not necessarily a Fab Five thing because it's teams that are very well built with different age of guys. You have some veterans on these teams and all that, but almost every great team has one just unbelievable freshman player. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I mean, it's just kind of a trend I'm seeing this year, and I think it's just because it's a really special class.
It is good for the sport that it gets younger, right? We talk about those COVID guys getting out, and the coaches have said over the past any year amount post COVID, so 5 years, 6 years now, it is you want to get old and you want to have good guard play to win in the tournament because you look at those teams that get to the Final Four, really good guard play, and they're really old. I'm interested how that shifts in the landscape of recruiting, right? And so I think you see Nate Oates take this U18 position as an assistant coach, right? Transfer portal is going to be a thing, and it's probably going to have some tighter reins in the future years. Is Nate Oates playing 4D chess by going and being, this is a little bit of a stretch, but a U18 USA assistant coach, developing better rapport, kind of rechecking himself with the guys at the prep level? No doubt it's going to pay dividends down the road, but I think you may see this shift in, it's not always going to be these older guys. So I think you bring up a good point with that. And then you have to get back to some of the high school recruiting, developing. Are there going to be restrictions on age limits in college basketball? And so it does become a younger man's game. What's going to happen with the international stuff? And so I think that kind of is the first domino, and it's the first tangible domino. You talk about DeBansta and those guys, and I don't think he was a freshman, but obviously topping at Houston, having a great year and having a bad injury, affects them. When you look up and down the line, what's going to happen with the state of the game, so to speak, to refer to another podcast title that I do?
Yeah, I just that's kind of been my takeaway on this year. And I think when we look back at it, I mean, how many of the conference player of the years are going to be freshmen? I mean, SEC player of the year could come down to a few guys. I mean, Florida may be able to throw Hall out there. But right now, to me, it looks like it's Acuff or Phylon. And Acuff dropping 49 might be the tie break. And I want it to be LeBaron, but I won't be mad either way there. ACC, it's looking like it's going to be Cam Boozer. Big 12, who knows who it's going to be? I mean, they're some of the best. I mean, three of the best freshmen in the country are in the Big 12. And then, so you kind of go around, you're like, how many of these All-Americans, how many of these Conference Player of the Year types are going to be freshmen? I think it's going to be a pretty crazy amount. And as someone who is, somewhat cheered for the Pelicans the last few years, it makes me that much more upset that they gave away their first round pick and are not going to kind of losing out on the chance to earn one of these first round guys next year. So the NBA is probably licking their chops right now. They're about to get a bunch of these dudes.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to follow. We have just a couple seconds here, so thank you everybody for listening. Definitely subscribe to this Galloway Communications channel. Check out more episodes of the Main Streets podcast. We hope to be back maybe before the SEC tournament. Britton and I can kind of break down the bracket a little bit, who we like, and then we'll do a pre-March Madness episode as well. We'll definitely be back before the SEC tournament, because Alabama will have played Auburn in Tuscaloosa to close the regular season. So thank you guys so much for listening. Britton's going to close us out with a last word. Appreciate anybody and everybody that takes the time to listen to our podcast. So we're not two guys just rambling on a screen. So thank you.
Absolutely. This time next week, it'll be March. So the end is nigh and March Madness is upon us. So roll tide and have a good week.